Deputy Aodhán Ríordáin.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I wasn't here for the presentation. But anyway, so I suppose I might have a different view than others on the nature of Irish schools, and that we have too many of them. About 4,000 schools in the country the size of the population of Manchester. At the primary level, you have junior schools, senior schools, girls' schools, boys' schools, Catholic schools, every other religion you can think of, schools, Welsh schools, educated girls' schools. And it is the Department of Education's responsibility to house all these schools. And so I find it incredibly, for my political lifetime, trying to deal with schools who, are seeking improvements, and the department is trying to, improve as you go. Some of the schools that I deal with really need a major revamp. They don't have basic sanitation within the rooms. They have to, even infants have to go down the corridor to a toilet. We all know the conversation around prefabricated buildings, etc. So on the broader scale, I don't expect you to comment on this, but I just want to put it on the record that I think we have to have a sort of a helicopter view of our school system and to think differently about it, because it's very frustrating if in a particular geographical area you have 4 different primary schools, a junior girls, a junior boys, a senior boys and senior girls, all looking for building programs, all pretty close to each other, but they're all completely independent. Separate principals, separate boards of management. And that certainly impacts on the kind of resources that you can give. Can I ask what kind of inspection routine you have? Like, do you proactively go out to schools and do a fire audit? Do you see what kind of improvements are needed? Are you always just depending on the Board of Management to contact you? I feel that the patronage model is really letting down the school system, because what happens is that, just like in COVID, you provide a bunch of money and you expect the school to apply for it rather than proactively contacting the school and saying, what do you need? Now, I know that's not the system we have. We don't effectively have a state education system. But if you're in like Finland, where you have 1 school per geographical area and that's it, and then you have the bizarre scenario of schools having to raise money for whatever kind of unit they want, and the pressure on the Parents Association to come up with the money. It's just it's a bizarre circle, and I just don't think it's sustainable anymore. So that's my first question. Do you have a proactive, not responding to Board of Management way of interacting with schools and inspecting them and say, do you know something, in 2023 it's not acceptable that an infant has to leave this class and be accompanied to go down the corridor to go to the toilet. It's not acceptable that this class is in a prefab for 27 years. It's not acceptable that the windows are so high. It's not acceptable that it's not insulated to a particular degree. Or are you always dependent on the Board of Management to contact you? Because in that regard, if that is the case, then schools in more advantaged areas are always going to do better, because on the Board of Management you're going to have an architect, you're going to have a barrister, you're going to have a, God help us, a politician. And other boards of management won't have that. My second question is a particular case of Gael Colostra Rockran in Dunamead, which is a 2nd level school. And if anybody was to visit that school and to engage with that school community, you would really wonder how they have kept any faith at all in any system that is supposedly there to empower their education experience. There's generations of children gone through that school in dilapidated, unsafe, depressing, prefabricated buildings, and they've gone through every single process you can possibly think of in order to enhance the situation. But it's an embarrassment whenever a political representative goes out to engage with the parents or engage with the school management or the excellent principal there, because there doesn't seem to be a shift. There doesn't seem to be a move. There doesn't seem to be a process. There doesn't seem to be, a date where people can look towards and say, well, by this stage, everything will have been enhanced. So there's my contributions. One is on how you proactively engage with schools. Do you wait for them to come to you, which I feel is unfair, or do you go out? Do you knock on the door? Do you contact? And do you demand of boards of management to have a better oversight of the health and safety implications? Because I understand, and maybe you can correct me on this, if the fire safety officer was to walk into half the schools in the country, they wouldn't be allowed open the next day. So, you can contradict me on that, but that's always my given understanding. And the second question is fundamentally on Gael Colostra Rockin and Donamead. You know, at what point are we going to enhance that education experience for those young people who and the staff who need it?
Thank you, Deputy. Just in terms of your first question, in terms of the more general question, I suppose it's a valid question to ask. I suppose traditionally the approach has been relying on the schools coming to the department with their issues and us dealing with them as best we could within the parameters that we have available to us. But I think more generally, as part of the reforms that we're doing in the planning building unit, we're moving more and more into a more proactive regime. And I suppose there are a number of elements to that. And it's not just in relation to condition. So like if you look at the whole area of, say, special needs and adding special needs capacity into the system, that's more primarily driven by the department and the NCC identifying need and coordinating where best to deliver that, and then contacting schools in relation to that, as distinct from asking schools to put their hands up. So that's just one example of that. In terms of condition issues and things like that, the direction of travel and where this will best get addressed is part of the climate agenda and rolling out of decarbonisation programme. And as part and parcel of that, we have commenced doing inventory of an energy audit of schools, which picks up on condition issues in schools. And we've 5 counties and the schools across 5 counties done in relation to that. And we envisage the balance of that to be done over the course of 2024 and 25. And that'll give us the full, complete picture in terms of condition issues across the school estate. And that then enables us, particularly with a climate lens, but it's relevant otherwise as well, to focus where best, if we have, for example, 50 or 100 or whatever million on the climate side of things, where best to target that investment, irrespective of what school it is, and not necessarily relying on that school. And that's just one aspect of that. Another element that's relevant is in terms of patrons, and we'll link in and more strategically with patrons now in terms of identifying issues and that. So it's not just relying on the individual schools. I don't think I'd agree with you, Deputy, just in relation to your comment around fire safety issues. We certainly do a lot of work in that area. We have an emergency work scheme for any school that have particular concerns. It's an area that we've also...
They have concern. You don't go and inspect.
Well, we don't go and inspect, but if you look at the school building programme and the scale and extent of it, there are professional design team and consultants out there in an awful lot of schools at any given time, which also provides opportunity beyond an individual school principal to identify any particular issues as well. So I would say that.
Can I interrupt this? I'm sorry, Chair, I know I'm way over my time. Do you do something like a play space audit? And I'll give an example. It's not the case anymore, but the school I spent 11 years in didn't have a playground, didn't have a yard. Children went home for lunch. They used to cross a very busy, thoroughfare to go home for lunch. These are primary school children. Like you spoke about the carbon audit, that's completely legitimate and laudable. But do you have a kind of a play space audit? Because if you go by a school, how do you know it's a school? The children are playing. Like, are there things like that in the mindset of the building unit of the department? That you know what I mean? That you are allowing the children to play at school. Because I found it unbelievable that I was teaching in a school where there wasn't capacity for the children to play and they had to go home for lunch. Yeah. Primary school children.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. And there's a lot of things that can be in our minds. We can have a lot of ambitions, but we also have to be realistic in terms of what we have to manage and what we have to work with in terms of the existing school estate, the size and constraints of sites, and particularly in central Dublin and things like that as well. But we maximise those wherever we can. And equally, we'd have some examples of schools that have placed facilities up on the roof as part of new school projects and things like that as well, where there are particular site constraints to manage as well. So like, we are solutions focused where there are opportunities to do that, but we have to be realistic as well in terms of what we can manage and what we can achieve. In terms of Gaelscoil Rockrell, we can come back directly to the Deputy in relation to that, but certainly we did some emergency works there, and we've a project very advanced in the pipeline in relation to that as well.
Okay, thank you.